Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. Excuse me, we've been off the air for a little while. Excuse me. I think I broke the microphone. I've been really tied up with the Gun Leash project, and I'm excited about what we're doing and where we're going. Gun Leash will save lives. Gun Leash will make lost and stolen guns obsolete someday. With that being said, I have to do shows because my soul and heart are in this, my interests about physical culture, about health, longevity, and so on. And to get followers today on social media, you have to be willing to do stupid stuff sometimes. Sometimes absurd. Sometimes it's legit. It's good stuff to examine. But I worry because people see things on Instagram and they think, "Oh, I'm going to try that. I got to learn to do that because I want to put my pictures up of me doing that." And there's something that's been pretty viral lately, and that's standing on your head. And anybody who's listened to this show for any length of time knows I'm a huge fan of inversion. And isn't inversion just another way, standing on your head, just another way of inversion? Yeah, it is. But we're going to discuss with Dr. Chris Marvin today, who really not only is a chiropractor, but he's a physical culturist like us, trains hard. He helps people. Whether or not the risk is worth the reward for standing on your head. Before we get started, we have to thank our title sponsor, and that's Legendary Foods, makers of the Sweet Roll. If you've wanted to have a Cinnabon for a while, but you don't dare eat it because of the sugar and the crap, well, here's your lucky day. Legendary now makes something called the Sweet Rolls. They come in cinnamon, chocolate, and wild berry, and you'll think you're eating a Cinnabon, but you're not, and you'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. 20 grams of high-quality protein, 5 net carbs, and 1 gram of sugar. They taste amazing. Buy a lot. They run out often. You'll want to have them handy. And make sure you let your kids eat them because they will benefit from not eating the crap that their friends eat. And go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary. Use the code SHR10, not just to save 10%, but to let them know that you heard about them here on Superhuman Radio. And now, without any further delay, Dr. Christopher Marvin, how are you?
Doing fantastic. How about you?
Wonderful. I always adjust the volume, and then when it comes time to do the show, it's always whacked out.
Yep.
I don't think it is, but anyway, good to have you. I know that you've been a fan of the show for a long time, and I share a lot of your posts because you do a lot of sensible stuff to help people build muscle, stay strong, and avoid injury. And I thought, this is the guy I want to ask a question. What about headstanding? What are your thoughts on it? Is it safe? Does it do anything for us? When would headstanding build a skill or strength in an area that we are going to apply it? What are your thoughts on this?
How much time do I have?
Uh,
Yeah. So we'll see if we can get it done in time. We'll see. Yeah, huge honor to be on the show. Like I said, and with talking about coming on the show, like I've listened to you for almost a decade, so this is pretty surreal. This is awesome. Big fan of physical culture, which is why I call myself a performance chiropractor. Side note, not just a chiropractor. When it comes to standing on your head, my first big thing is outside of maybe break dancers, wrestlers, and like combat athletes, when would you actually need to stand on your head from a sports need emphasis? I know yogis do it, and that's what we're talking about. But for me, before I do anything, if I'm going after any adaptation, any training stimulus, any rehab stimulus, it's got to make sense on paper. And would you ever need this? And outside of break dancers where they twirl on their head and, combat folks, I can't really think of any other sports where you're purposely balancing your entire weight on your head. And even in wrestling and combat sports, if you're balancing your weight on your head, something went wrong during the match.
That's a good one.
Right? Like something went terribly wrong to get you there.
I've seen guys, I've seen MMA guys get dropped on their head, and I watch MMA. I love it. I watch guys get hurt all the time. But the only time I cringe is when somebody flips them and they drop on their head, and I'm thinking, man, this is because now you could be paralyzed for the rest of your life. You could be a quadriplegic.
Correct. Yeah, there's an injury specifically called a Jefferson fracture, which is a burst fracture of your second vertebra, and that is an immediate stop what you're doing, call 911, life-threatening injury. And the mechanism is direct. It's called axial, so the pressure is going straight on your head. Axial trauma, axial pressure, that is the exact mechanism for a life-altering injury if it is not handled immediately in the correct way.
Okay, so now there's people in the audience going, but I don't drop myself on my head, Dr. Marvin. I get into position. I'm using my elbows. My elbows are bearing some of the weight. I do it gently. Yep. I let my weight down on my head, the pressure on my head slowly. Like, that's not me. And also I want to mention, I looked, the average weight of a yogi is 50 to 65 kilos, which is about 110 pounds. Like I'm usually 238, 240. I would never try to stand on my head. I'm sorry, but go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. The biggest issue I see with this is you have no ability to do what we call graded exposure, to where you generally build up tissue tolerance and generally add load over time. You could claim that you're taking some weight off your neck by balancing your hands, but you're most likely just balancing your center of mass with your body than taking weight off. It's not like a stool where it's 33, 33, 33.
Right.
It's still all on your head.
Right. You're balancing so you can put all the weight on your neck.
Yep. And it's all or nothing. You can't go, I'm going to do 20% of my body weight today. It's physically impossible. I'm going to do 4, because you would need to slowly work up over time. Everything we do in fitness, in manual therapy, and rehab is applying load to the biological ecosystem that is our body, but you've got to gradually increase it over time. Balancing on your head, it's all or nothing. Does it look cool? I guess, if that's your jam. If that floats your boat and finds your lost remote, great. But for the average person who probably has a weaker neck starting out because of society, we all have the forward head, right, from text neck or sitting at our laptops all day.
I know. I'm using that thing called a I got it from my chiropractor, who's also big into sports. It's something. It looks like a kind of a wedgie thing that you put on the floor, and you put your neck on it, and you just let you. Do you know what I'm talking about? What's it called?
Yeah. There's a couple models. There's a cervical pump is a big one where you pump it up. We could talk about that as we get going. But
the cervical pump I'm interested in, because that kind of creates traction in a way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
getting
back to the neck, the neck has a specific curvature, and not having that curvature leads to lots of problems for people. When you are standing on your head, don't you have to take the natural curve and accommodate it and make the spine more straight, which is not natural?
Well, let me talk about the neck first, and then we'll talk about the curve, because that's a whole can of worms. But 100%, Let's go there. Okay, if you look at our neck, it's hard to make in our argument it was designed to bear weight as opposed to our upper back and our low back. Like
Right.
here, I have a model. I grab this in between the break. Look at the size of these bones. Look at the size of those bones. These are 4 to 5 times larger.
Mhm.
Our upper neck is where we have the ability to rotate, right? Half of the rotation of our neck comes at this top level right there. We don't have a disc there. We have ligament laxity in our upper neck compared to otherwise, so we can rotate our head and have that dramatic amounts of motion. There's no disc there. There's ligament laxity there. They are small, and they're not really designed to be directly load bearing. You've got a lot of nerves there. You've got a lot of ligaments and tendons, which give feedback to the brain to tell us where our head is in space. Pain signaling, eye writing reflexes, the whole 9 yards. So it is hard to make an argument that that was designed to directly bear the load of your body. It's hard to make an argument. Yes, we know cultures like in Africa, they'll balance stuff on their head, but I'm sure they built their weight up over time. It's not this all or nothing, zero weight, full body.
And it's also not the entire weight of your body. You know, they
correct.
Maybe it's 10, maybe it's an additional 20 or 30 pounds on the top of the head. That's a huge difference. And also the fact that the head is planted and the upper body can move based on the neck is a big difference than having something on your head and being able to move your head freely.
Correct. Yeah. The amount of torque that can be applied on your neck if you start to lose your body position is dramatic. I mean, not to hate on it because it's done a lot of good, but like, look at what happened at CrossFit Open this year. In one of the workouts, if you made it through the first workout, you then did handstand push-ups. I had a lot of angry necks coming in because people were balancing on their heads between reps because they were exhausted or were slamming down on their heads, right? It's job security, yes, but stuff like that just is not safe and it's not smart. When it comes to the curve of our neck, not to ruffle some feathers, but we now know from a current model of evidence-based medicine, sports medicine, there's no direct correlation between loss of neck curvature and symptoms, which again is going to ruffle some feathers. Different strokes, different folks, but from an evidence-based modern approach to sports medicine, we know that that doesn't impact. But again, a lot of people are weak in the muscles on the front of our neck. They're called our deep neck flexors. That's why our head's forward. Those are weak and those are what pull us back into retraction. Can you maintain that retracted position? Probably not. When I test people for whiplash, athletes, neck pain, headaches, we literally have people lie on the table. They give themselves a double chin, and then they raise their head off the table 3 inches. The research says women should be able to hold that for 30 seconds and men 40 seconds with no shaking, which I've never had anybody pass, and one correction. And that's only your body weight. I mean, that's only the weight of your head, which is 10 to 13 pounds. Yeah, not your body weight. So now you're going to put yourself in a position where you have to maintain that retracted position so the bones are lined up to absorb force a little bit better and take less pressure off the joints, the facet joints, the disc, all that. That's just a rest, like perfect storm for creating some issues. I can't think of almost a worse scenario because you're deconditioned, you haven't done it, and it's not.
I don't see any, like, first of all, if we start to look at the insertion and originations of these muscles, they're designed to affect horizontal motion and weight, right? We do neck bridges. We have a 4-way neck machine. You go backwards, you go sideways. They're not designed to take weight perpendicularly. Is that the right? No, they are designed to. Yeah. But
axial pressure. They're not designed for axial pressure.
They don't provide any strength in a column. They only provide strength in these types of side to side and backwards and forward movements. So how could you even strengthen the tissue there? I mean, I guess if you're someone plays football, you wrestle, you're doing bridge work, you're doing stuff to make your neck stronger, that would probably help when you're having direct inline pressure on the neck. But to what degree?
Correct. Yeah. So all of our athletes, we strengthen their neck. there's a direct correlation with neck strength and concussion risk. There's a direct correlation with headaches and neck pain with neck strength. So we do it for run-of-the-mill pain patients and high-end at all of our rugby players, all of our combat sports, all of our football players. You better believe, even if they're coming in for their low back, we're giving them neck strengthening day one. Another issue that people don't know is you've got some ligaments up high in your neck that literally prevent your spine from hitting your brainstem and your spinal cord. Those could get weakened and degenerative, especially if you have RA, rheumatoid arthritis, if you have Down syndrome. Other conditions will weaken that. That's why if I have a patient with rheumatoid arthritis, I am not adjusting their neck until I get an MRI to make sure that ligament's intact. What if you add something like that or a previous whiplash injury that has weakened that for something? That's a recipe for life-altering consequences, trying to do what some person did for sensationalism on social media to get a bunch of likes and get a bunch of followers.
Right.
Like that's a huge concern too, that I guarantee you none of these fitness influencers know about, because why? They're not trained to, right? And that's why you've got to be so careful with who you're getting your information from. And it seems like critical thought has gone out the window. I am not big on social media because I say it depends a lot, and I don't do ultimatum, sensationalist, cookie cutter statements. It drives people up the wall, and I don't care. That's the truth. It depends is the answer way more than you people would like to hear, but that's the honest truth. But it's way easier if I make outlandish claims like we talked about pre-show. Look at what the Liver King did. People were feigning outrage when that came out. I'm like, come on, really? Did you really not like?
They wanted to believe. They wanted to
Correct.
believe. That's what it is.
Yep. But yeah, so who can make the most sensationalist, outrageous claims? That's
they have
how
the most followers. And you know, and here's the interesting thing. The people who say the stupidest, most absurd things have the most followers. It's like, oh my God, he said he's going to live to be 180, and that's why he takes these multivitamins. Oh my God, I got to follow him.
Yeah,
he must be brilliant. Excuse me.
Yeah, like, so one of the
it's hard
talks
to believe I have allergies right now.
You're good. Yeah, right. One of the talks I put about was what matters for performance. And at the very top was what I call pseudo recovery. That could be your supplements, your massage guns, your Normatec compression pants, your whatever biohacking thing's trendy. You know what's going to matter more? How well do you sleep? Do you train? Do you exercise? What's your stress management? What's your nutrition like? People want the easy, sexy stuff. Everybody flips that pyramid on its head, and we focus on the minutia that gives you half of a percent, maybe, instead of focusing on big rocks that are going to give you
people are 100%. Lazy. They want to
100%.
know if there's a magic bean out there that will mitigate their laziness or their inability to change habits.
Yep. Now, I will admit, in my early 20s,
I was one of those guys.
I took probably 40 to 50 over-the-counter supplements plus other supplements, thinking, and I didn't know what my nutrition was. I didn't prioritize sleep. I wasn't, working on stress management and mindset. I wasn't focusing on little stuff because, it's way sexier and it's way easier to think I'm one shiny bottle of pills or capsules or this biohack that research just showed that it works for everybody, right? Anything somebody makes out, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true.
Well, you know what the acid test to me is? If it worked 50 years ago, we should still be talking about it. So like right now, these cryo therapy, freezing yourself and cold baths and all that sort of stuff. And they're popular right now. But see, the influencers have to keep finding new shit because they need to be influencing you to buy shit so that they get their commissions from the companies they're repping. So I wouldn't do this right now. I mean, but if someone wants to do this, I'll have them on the show. Go back over the past 10 years and tell me what the hot shit was 10 years ago and where is it today? Oh, it's not here today. That's because it was bullshit back then and it's still bullshit now. That's why.
But it'll cycle back every 20 to 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah, people forget and they're like, oh, whatever happened to this? Let's start selling it again. That's exactly what happens.
Yeah, and a lot of it's when they can make money. Like ketogenic diets have their place. We're going off the rails, so if we need to bring it back, let me know. but it got popular again because companies could manufacture ketones for the first time ever.
Right. Well,
Right?
and also
it has its time and its place.
Also-
It has its
also-
time and its place.
Yeah, but also keto supplements, keto snacks, it has a lot to do with that. I mean, the ketogenic diet in all reality was introduced by Dr. Mauro Di Pasquale 35 years. No, now
Yep.
probably almost 40 years ago.
Yep.
As the
every
diet.
20 to 30 years, stuff will recycle and it's just regurgitated with a new package. So sorry, we went off on the rails. I told you that could be dangerous with me.
That's okay. The tangents often are interesting. So what I want to do is I want to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, I want to talk about inversion now.
Yeah.
And the sensible approach. I strongly believe that being upside down is important, and I'm going to tell you why on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. BPC is one of the most amazing supplements you can use. It's been shown to increase the speed of recovery. BPC stands for Body Protection Compound, and it's a naturally occurring peptide in the body. Used by professional athletes and weekend warriors alike, there has always been an obstacle in the way of average people using BPC, and that is it was injectable only. Not any longer, thanks to NutriNeeds. We now have oral BPC, and it works. Go to shrnetwork.biz/NutriNeeds, NutraNeeds. Use the code SHR and save 10% off your bottle of BPC. Feel better, recover faster, train harder. NutriNeeds. Hey, this is Carl Lenore. I am the inventor of GunLeash. Over 500,000 handguns are lost in the United States every year. If you carry a gun like I do, you are 300 times more likely to lose your gun. And 15% of those guns will end up in criminals' hands and used in the commission of a crime. GunLeash solves that problem. GunLeash is a patented, no-tracking proximity device the size of a postage stamp. It will alert you as soon as your gun is outside of your range, so you can never leave your gun behind. To learn more and to be notified when GunLeash is available at the end of January, go to gunleash.com and get on our mailing list. GunLeash. Never lose your gun, never leave your gun. There are lots of concerns about food supply today. That's why you need White Oak Pastures. White Oak Pastures will deliver food right to your doorstep. You don't even have to go out and be disappointed by shopping in grocery stores. The finest beef, pork, lamb, duck, and more can be found at White Oak Pastures. And now they even have seafood. And best of all, White Oak Pastures has a negative carbon footprint, which means that you don't have to feel guilty for eating your ribeye. Go to shrnetwork.biz/white oak and use the code SUPERHUMAN to save 15% off.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where brawn and brains finally meet.
Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. Christopher Marvin. We're talking about standing on your head. Personally, I think the risk outweighs any reward you can get from it. But inverting, there are some benefits. Before we go further, I want to mention his practice. If you want to reach out to him, you can go to Coastal Performance Chiro. So it's Coastal Performance Chiro, all one word.com. And you can look him up. Where are you located, Chris?
Seabrook, Texas. So like Houston area.
Good. Okay. So you got a lot of people out there that could use your help.
Yep.
So there's a couple things I've been contemplating for a very, very long time now. They're always operating in the back of my head. The first one is how to turn neonatal genes back on. So the best thing you could do is take thymosin beta-4, large doses once a week. And that is actually the peptide that makes babies form in organs in the baby, glands and bone and tissue and muscle, everything. It's like thymosin beta-4 unlocks the original blueprint of your DNA. And I predict as we move forward, we're going to learn in the next 5-10 years that thymosin beta-4 can help you regenerate tissue, organ tissue, bone tissue, everything. The other thing that I think about a lot is in your mom, in her womb, you spend probably a lot of time upside down. And what value does that have? And we can't discount that. You can't say, "Oh, big deal." No, it is a big deal. And I've often thought, I've had conversations at length with Ron Penna, who's brilliant. He is the founder of Legendary Foods. He was one of the founders of Quest Nutrition. The guy is brilliant. And I told him about this. One day I was sitting in my pool, and you submerge and everything gets quiet, and it harkens back to when you were in your mom's belly, and you could hear murmuring and you could hear sounds, but they were indistinct. But also, what about being in that amniotic fluid and being upside down? That's why people go to these immersion tanks, these, what do they call them? Deprivation tanks. You get in, it's dark, you sit in a highly salinated water, and thoughts come to you and all this sort of stuff. And I said, I wonder if we spend a lot of time upside down when our brain is forming. And why do I say that? Because Win Wenger was a brilliant doctor who I had on my show 15, 16 years ago. He had written several books. And I had him on after I interviewed a woman who was from the Einstein School of Medicine on the East Coast about the things that affect your brain. Your brain shrinks as you get older, number one. Also, anesthesia is horrible for your brain. It doesn't bounce back. Multitasking is horrible for your brain, but we all do it. But so when I had her on the show, she said, the brain shrinks, aging brain. So Win Wenger wrote a book about things that you could do to improve your brain's ability to remain healthy. And one of them was inversion. And so we talked about that, and I went out and got myself an inversion table, and I've been inverting at least for the past 15, 16 years now, twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. Not a lot. I'm not trying to set records. I'll do it for 3 to 5 minutes. I'll watch a couple of videos on YouTube, and then I straighten out and I go about my day. I can tell you this. My my lumbar spine causes problems, sensations in my pinky toes, and in my legs, that when I get off of the inversion table, they're gone. I can run up the stairs and not be concerned about torquing my spine. So I know what I'm talking about. The inversion is good, and it's good for your brain. It's good for your heart. It makes your heart pump differently when you're upside down, because it's literally pumping up. So it puts a lot more pressure on the heart, which is a good thing. People go, "Oh, that's dangerous." No, the heart becomes stronger when you challenge it with different types of things. But the other thing that's always fascinated me, and I haven't talked a lot about it on the show, but is the umbilical cord. Why? Well, we snip the umbilical cord and we're done. But the umbilical cord is like this massive cable, and there are, for better word, there are channels in that cable that go to your heart, to your spine, to every part of your body was fed individually and at the same time all together from your umbilical cord. What if we can tap in and find the channels that went to your heart, and we could inject drugs right into that, like thymosin beta-4, and affect the heart? We don't know. No. I mean, they cut it and that's it. They're done. No, this was the root. This was your root. If you were a plant, this is your root. And the root is the reason you're here. Shouldn't we look at the root and say, is there anything we can learn? Is there anything we can leverage in the umbilical cord? Why do we just cut it and forget about it? So those are things that interest me. So I believe that being upside down has something to do with switching on some neonatal genes, just like thymosin beta-4 is showing now evidence that it does. And that's why I like inversion. I just feel great when I get off my inversion table. What do you thought? And I just want to make a point here. I go completely upside down, but I did that gradually over years. I used to just go 45 degrees.
Yep.
50 degree. I took it before you. I have calluses on the insteps of my ankles from hanging in those friggin' ankle holders. So go slow. Good.
Yeah, you beat me to it. What we talked about at the beginning of the talk, graded exposure. Yeah, don't go straight up. Like, go the minimal angle and slowly increase it over time. Okay, there's a lot to unpack. I will speak on the things that I know about. I'm not going to speak on the brain health stuff because I'm not familiar with that. I'm not going to be an a-hole and speak above what I know. We do know, like old school bodybuilding trick is to elevate your feet the night before your show. It'll change water retention hormones. Like, we know it's good for the heart. So yeah, that's why I'm comfortable with agreeing with that. Inversion, and let's just talk about traction too, are in theory decompressing the spine, right? Standing on your neck is straight compression. Here's where, when I get asked about inversion and traction tables and decompression, or whatever word you want to use, I typically respond with, if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, don't force it. We know, let's look at traction, we'll look at inversion. So traction, you lay on the table, they hook you up and they add force to, in theory, create space. It's going to ruffle some feathers again, but meta-analysis typically say, yeah, it may work temporarily for neck disability and pain scores, about the same or maybe a little bit less than other modalities. But typically they all agree that more studies need to be done, because the controlled trials that have been done typically have a good amount of bias in them. They're not set up great. So what I tell people, has that helped you in the past? If it has, go for it. If it hasn't, then don't. Everybody responds differently. So not very popular in my field to say that, but that's what the research says. But again, evidence-based medicine is, what does the research say? What is your patient or your client like? And what does your personal experience tell you? So it's that three-pronged approach. Inversion, similar concept, right? So the idea is you're creating space, you're unjamming joints, and then we're just focused on the spine for this part of the conversation. There's even less evidence about inversion being impactful. So again, I go back to, does it help you? Inversion worked great for me for a period of time, and then one day it switched. I've had a lot of injuries, like 9 surgeries, and I've broken my back and disc issues. And one day it switched, and now inversion aggravates my low back, so I don't do it. So I tell folks, and here's that it depends answer that nobody wants, because they want cookie cutter, ultimatum, black or white statements. Inversion, if it works for you for reducing pain, like yourself, it works great for you, then I'm going to tell you to keep doing it. But if somebody tries it and like, man, every time I do the inversion, it tweaks my low back like I experience, or it gives me a pounding headache, which in theory would subside over time as your body adapts. That's why you go slowly into more vertical positions. Then don't do it. So a lot of it, it's not a cop out. It just truly depends. But we know 100% it'll change fluid retention hormones. It'll change heart dynamics. But I'm not going to pretend like I'm at the level of the individual you mentioned. So I'm not going to speak out of turn. I don't know. Again, if somebody doesn't say I don't know a bit, that's another red flag, like we talked about, for sensationalism and always kind of having an answer for everything. Yeah, if it works for you, great. Go slow. Not only do you work up on the angle of verticality, you work up on the duration.
Right.
So you've got to build that tissue tolerance.
So I can hang very long, and it says not to. Like the Guinness Book of World Records in inversion is just like something silly, like 20 something minutes. And the medical orthodoxy says if you hang that long, like you can end up creating glaucoma. And if you have an aneurysm, you can blow it out. But I've been doing it for so long, it doesn't bother me. But the point I want to make is, so when I started to see my chiropractor, Dr. Chris Chase. Chase. Oh God, I forget his last name. I'm embarrassed. But anyway, I'm going to see him later today. I have some scoliosis in my lower spine. It doesn't surprise me of all the deadlifting and squatting I did. But my theory on decompression is this: you spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on your feet. Well, not your waking hours on your feet, right? And then you get in a decompressing machine for 15, 20 minutes. Like, don't bullshit me. That isn't going to make up for the fact that I sit like this on my chair all day long. I tell people, like, when you sit down in your car, make sure both cheeks are down, because if you're one of these people who has the gangster lean, you are setting yourself up to have changes in your spine that you don't want to grow old with. And so I have reduced my scoliosis and my lumbar spine by 7 degrees. You know how they do that thing, the line here, we'll look at the curve. But the reason he says this is amazing, but the reason is because I hang every morning and every evening. I straighten my spine out. First of all, I straighten my spine out as much as possible before I go to bed. And then when I wake up, it's already relaxed. So I want to take it a little further, right? Because if I want to make it straight, I can't just keep taking it back to square one every morning. And I'm just going to maintain that curvature. I need to take it beyond. That's my theory. Also, I completely relax my gut, almost like a vacuum pose, and I can feel the vertebrae pop in my lumbar spine. Sometimes I grab the railings that create the thing, and I pull, and I call it milking my spine. I wiggle my hips while I'm pulling. So it's like I'm adding more than just my body weight now. And sometimes I hump a little bit, and I want to get those discs. I want to kind of massage them almost and see if they'll straighten out more. He told me, he says, I've never seen anybody have this fast of results. And I love the guy. But part of it is what I'm doing on my own, because I am really investing a lot of time decompressing my spine, in my humble opinion. That's what I think.
Yeah. Well, everybody can do a fun experiment. Measure yourself first thing upon waking, measure yourself right before bed. You will be taller in the morning because your discs have rehydrated and everything's happening. You haven't stood under gravity. What you're doing with the moving is a process called imbibition, where you're actually getting nutrients into the disc. That's why it feels so great. Again, everybody's going to respond differently. So you would work your way up to that. You wouldn't just immediately go, oh, I'm going to go, huge 90-degree verticality issue plus the milking of the spine day one. Like, you got to work yourself up. In terms of scoliosis, most folks will have a scoliosis based on their handedness. So again, there's a million different ways to approach this. Different strokes, different folks. I'm not big on x-rays and spine curves and subluxation theory. All right, but different strokes, different folks, whatever, find what works for you, what you can do business with. But yeah, most folks are going to have a scoliosis based on their handedness. That's normal, right? Our bodies are not meant to be symmetrical. We have more organs on the right side of our body. More of our brain is devoted to the right side of our body. Yeah.
I call it occupational hypertrophy. I observed when I was a kid, I worked on the racetrack, and all the blacksmiths that were right-handed had huge Popeye-like right forearms, and their left arms were normal. I look at people, I look at calves. Most people have a large right calf because they drive with their right foot. They're doing thousands and thousands of reps, hitting the brake, hitting the gas pedal. Also, most people have a great left leg flare, upper leg, because they do a one-legged pistol squat getting in and out of their car. So, and in fact, the guy who trained Muhammad Ali originally, when he got off the bus to go to the training camp, he was walking back to the training camp from the bus stop. He was carrying a valise, a suitcase, whatever you want to call it, valise. And the guy told him, hold it with your left hand. So he switched hands. Then after a while, he says, hold it. And he says, why do you keep making me switch hands? He says, because do you want to have one side of your body stronger than the other? You have to alternate, exposing each hand to the weight. And I mean, this is true. People may think, oh, that's it. No, it's the God's honest truth. The thing, if you sit in your chair all day long, I have a good friend who sits like this. I say, someday you're going to have a lower back problem and you're going to not know where it came from. It came because you literally are training your back. Chris K says he sits on an exercise ball while sitting at the desk. It makes a huge difference. What do you think?
Yeah, you're going to be forced to move on the exercise ball. So you're getting that motion in the spine to rehydrate everything. You're giving feedback to the brain, right? Our body uses, they're called, it doesn't matter what they're called, joints and muscles and ligaments in the spine for body awareness, proprioceptive awareness.
The Golgi you were going to talk about?
All that stuff. Yep. It'll send pain relieving signals to the brain, stuff like that. So you're getting sensory feedback. If you look at evolutionary biology, which is what you did for the inversion table,
right?
We walked our prey to death. We're designed to move. We're designed to sprint short distances, grab stuff and throw stuff. So some short explosion, physical strength, and we're designed to move a ton.
We were hunters of persistence, right?
Correct. What weapons do we have? We've got teeth and we've got no claws. So that's why I love exercise balls. I have patients because obviously treat a lot of desk jockeys, because that's the modern world, especially after that whole snafu, whatever, we'll leave whatever word you want to call it, we went through. So a lot of people, do you have a sit to stand desk? Literally standing for 10 minutes every hour. While I'm always worried about these sensationalist comments, it appears that you might have a slightly smaller waist circumference if you stand 10 minutes every hour versus sitting the whole hour. We're designed to move. So I love exercise balls. I love sit to stand desk. Set a timer, get up, walk around. I tell all my people who work in a cubicle, bump your fluid uptake a little bit so you at least have to use the restroom once every 2 to 3 hours versus just sitting there zoned out. You're like this. Okay. We're designed to move. So little hacks like that. Set a timer on your phone. But yeah, exercise balls are great. Again, I've also had people go from nothing to, I sat on an exercise ball my entire 8-hour shift and now I'm in pain. Well, yes, tissue tolerance is real. We've got to increase the load that we're putting on our body over time. So again, that's why it's dangerous. Yeah, I'll say the word dangerous. If you look at sensationalist stuff on social media and go, I want to try that with not knowing what you don't know. Like I talked about with the upper neck. What if you have some weird ligament thing that you don't know about? It's dangerous. Or not understanding regressing exercise and fitness and everything we do is much more important than progressing, in my opinion. And that everybody focuses on progression. How do you make something easier for somebody to meet them where they're at? Because if you look at the data, most of our population is not in this physical culture like you like to talk about. Like that's why half the time my first bit of exercise with folks is go for 10-minute walks after meals, because that's so dramatic from what you're already doing, and it'll help low back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain. Motion is lotion. So
yeah, I mean, Stu McGill has been on the show a few times, and he says the one thing that can help everybody's lower back pain is walking, and the other one is planking. He likes side planks and stuff like that, but you can't get people to do it. They complain about their backs, but if literally get up in the morning, walk 10 minutes away from the house, 10 minutes back, you're done. Get down on the floor and do a couple planks, you're done. And instead they'll complain, take Advil. I mean, it's like, dude, don't ask for answers if you're not going to apply them. Let's take our last commercial break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Don't leave. Merrick Health is a premium telehealth platform that connects customers with partnered providers from the comfort of your home. Merrick provides concierge service with your very own patient care provider as your health advocate. You'll go over all your needs and goals, from improving sexual function, hair loss prevention, increased muscle, fat loss, and overall improved performance. Prescribed treatment options can be ordered and shipped directly to you if you meet the requirements. All from the comfort of your home. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Merrick Health. That's MAREKHEALTH and order your comprehensives and get 10% off with code SHR. Don't forget to add the lab analysis to have results reviewed with potential over-the-counter supplements or treatment recommendations. That's shrnetwork.biz/Merrick Health and use code SHR at checkout. Or order your own desired labs with code SHR and get 10% off your first lab order.
Hey guys, it's time to change your f***ing underwear, and it's time to change to Sheath. Sheath's underwear's revolutionary designs allows your man parts to hang the way they would naturally hang if you were not wearing underwear. And this improves the blood flow throughout the day to the twigs and berries. If you've never experienced wearing a pair of Sheath underwear, boy, is there an exciting experience waiting for you. Grab a pen and write this down. Go to shrnetwork.biz/sheath. That's SHEATH. And use the code SUPERHUMAN to save 20% off your first pair. And get this, if you're not completely satisfied, send them back for a full refund. That's shrnetwork.biz/sheath.
Dogs should be powered by fat and protein, not carbs. That's why Visionary Pet makes low-carb, ketogenic dog food for dogs of all breeds and life stages. From kibble to freeze-dried and even low-carb treats, all Visionary Pet recipes are very low-carb, ketogenic, and made with 100% real meat protein. Shop now and use code SHR for 20% off your first order today. Your dog deserves the lifelong benefits of optimal nutrition. Make the switch to Visionary and see why smart dogs eat low carb.
Remember those rectangular toasted pastries you used to love when you were a kid? Well, Legendary Foods has just made them better. The new cake-style tasty pastry is like nothing you've ever had before. With 20 grams of high-quality protein and less than 1 gram of sugar, you'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off your purchase of tasty pastries. Now available in cookies and cream, red velvet cake, birthday cake, blueberry, strawberry, brown sugar cinnamon, and hot fudge sundae. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use code SHR10 today.
This is the Superhuman Channel, doing reps with the weight of the world.
Welcome back. I got to plug a product. I love this stuff by Bioptimizers. Their other brand is Newtopia. This Collagenius is amazing. If you want to have something that is ridiculously delicious in the morning, that will help wake you up instead of caffeine and coffee, it works. It's got a series of mushrooms in it, lion's mane, but it's got something in it. It's not cocoa powder. It's cocoa butter powder. It's rich and decadent and delicious. I make it into candy. I put creatine, a couple scoops of this, a tablespoon of coconut oil, put it into the refrigerator for about 10 minutes after I stir it together, and I eat it in the morning as my pre-workout. This stuff is so delicious. I can't stop. Sometimes I just grab a scoop and throw it in my mouth because it's that good, and you'll love it too, I promise you. It's called Collagenius. It's got collagen in it. It's got all sorts of great stuff in it. It's a great morning drink. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Bioptimizers. Use the code SHR10 to save 10% off. If you want to change it up, try this stuff in the morning instead of your coffee. We're talking with Dr. Christopher Marvin right now. I guess we've wrapped up the interview to a great degree. My vote is standing on your head is stupid. It's not going to benefit you in anything special, and really it's risky. There's lots of better ways to make your neck stronger, and there's lots of better ways to experiment with inversion if those are the benefits that you're looking to do. What do you think?
Completely agree. Here, let me give an easy way of how we start with neck strengthening in office for everybody, because it's tied to headaches, neck pain, the whole 9 yards. It's interesting. The research says it's tied to a very specific type of headache, but anecdotally working with patients and myself, within 3 weeks of starting these exercises, even migraine sufferers, regardless if there's a hormonal or nutritional component, will have a little bit of reduction. That's how powerful it is. So you could do it lying in your bed, lying on the floor, and you could do it in your car into your headrest, so long as you're not going 85 miles an hour down the interstate. Do it at a stoplight, double chin, press your head into the headrest or the pillow, hold for 5 seconds, and relax. Every time I have patients who do this, it doesn't matter if they have an injury history, they have neck pain, whiplash, whatever you want to call it, within about 3 weeks, give or take, they do that twice a day, 3 sets of 10 reps, 5-second holds every time. Neck pain starts to go down, movement capacity goes up, and headaches go down. the whole 9 yards. So it's an easy way that everybody can do it without any equipment. Yes, now we'll use like a TheraBand or a resistance band, especially if they're the big athletes. We'll use an iron neck device. Not everybody has access to that, but everybody can start strengthening the front of your neck. They're called your deep neck flexors, because when we activate those on the front of the neck, it gets the muscles on the back of the neck to inhibit and relax a little bit. And those are cranked on everybody because we're in a sedentary culture. We sit a lot more than we should. Even, everybody does. I even admit I sit more than I should based on what I do, right? So doing that is an easy way. It's not immediate overnight, but over time, give it about 3 weeks, you'll start to feel better. Then you could start using resistance bands and pulling from different directions. You still retract straight back, but you could pull directly forward. You could pull to each side. You could flip it or rotate it in the front and pull on one way to resist rotation. Whatever movement you resist, you'll gain a little bit more access to. So then you can be really specific of, man, I woke up and I had a little crick in my neck, because we've always had that from sleeping kind of funky. Then you go, okay, I have a hard time bending my head, side bending to the left. So now I'm going to grab my resistance band, chin retract straight back, but then I'm resisting, right, the side to side movement to maybe open that back up. So low hanging fruit. Yes, it's a little bit of time. I'm asking for 5 minutes twice a day. Yeah,
right. I know, right? Like, just don't go on Instagram right now. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. Social media is a necessary evil for me. That's how we found each other. I mean, I've listened to you for years. Right. That's how you found me.
Right.
Oh, the stuff I have to, even when I post my quote unquote rant videos on my private Instagram, I'm still editing what I would like to say because some of the stuff is so
people
maddening.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know.
Yep. You got to meet people where they're at. But yeah, don't stand on your head unless you're a break dancer who's doing a head spin move. Even if you're a combat sport, sure. But again, if you landed up on your head, let's
address something. If you're a break dancer and you're spinning on your head, the centrifugal force of spinning is actually making you lighter on your head.
And people, that's why I said specifically spinning. Yeah. I wouldn't, because sometimes they'll go there and again, but they have a need for that. The average Joe Schmo, right? Soccer mom, Susie, John Doe, whatever you want to call them, they don't have a need for that, and they've never strengthened their neck, and they're going to go to their entire body weight. Like, yeah, you and I are a little over 100 kilograms. That's a big difference from a 55 kilogram yogi who also, by definition of doing yoga, has already strengthened some of the stabilizers, because that's what yoga is great for, versus somebody who's deconditioned and they are like, oh, I want to do this Instagram challenge or social media challenge or whatever the flavor of the week is. It's job security for me, but I don't like it.
Chris K is asking, how long after he eats can he walk? And the first question is, why are you walking after you eat? Only people who should be walking after they eat are people who have metabolic issues and they're trying to burn off or circumvent a rise in blood sugar. Because remember, we all know this saying, but none of us pay attention to it. Rest and digest. When we look at the nervous system, after a meal, the body wants to rest because all of the energy is being used by the digestive factory. And we don't want to have to walk and do stuff. The only people who should be walking after a meal are people who have blood sugar issues. And if you're on metformin, you can get off of your metformin by walking after a meal. There are studies that show that even a 20-minute walk after a meal can manage blood sugar better than metformin. But you only should be doing that if you're already metabolically broken and you're trying to fix yourself. Other than that, you can walk fasted. You can get up in the first thing. That's what I do. I get on the treadmill first thing in the morning, and I'm not like, oh, I'm going to walk fasted because I'm going to burn more calories. No, I'm going to eat after, because then I go to the gym. So it's walk, eat, train, eat again. That's my routine. I don't fast in the morning anymore. I stopped. I don't need it. I'm trying to build muscle. I'm going to be 65 in a couple months, and I'm building muscle again, which people say you can't, but you can if you do the right things. Fasting isn't going to help you build muscle. But yeah, what do you think? Should he walk after a meal if he's not metabolically broken?
Here's why I do that recommendation. I'm looking at big rocks. The average person doesn't have enough activity, so I'm putting a ritual behind it to increase the odds it gets done. Yes, on paper in a vacuum, you could argue a metabolically flexible, healthy person doesn't need to walk. But if they're not getting enough activity anyways, it builds the ritual. That's why pre-workouts and post-workout supplements are so popular. They ritualized it. So it gets people just to increase movement. And I can't tell you, people come in a lot of pain and they're like, what have you done since you've been in pain? Nothing. That's problem one. I need you to move. For metabolically inflexible, unhealthy, overweight people, it's a game changer, like you talked about.
What do you think? How long after a meal? So they eat, and should they just go right out on the street, or should they let their food digest a little bit and hit it for 30 minutes later?
What are you going to consistently do? Because consistent adherence to a subpar program will always outperform sporadic adherence to a so-called perfect program, and there's no such thing as perfect. So I don't care about the minutia, which is fun to argue over and it's sexy and it sells. I care about consistency over the long run. Again, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but if it builds the ritual, or I'll have people walk before, like if you're trying to put on mass and you're having a hard time eating, walk before your meal.
Mm-hmm.
I flip it, right? But again, it's building the ritual to get people moving because we're not moving enough. So and again, everybody's different. Maybe you could eat a massive meal and immediately go for a walk and you feel great. Maybe you need to wait 5 to 10 minutes. Again, you're going to have to play around with it. It depends. There's that answer again.
You. Whatever you're going to do consistently. Yeah, I get it.
Correct.
You're right.
Yeah. So that's why I go with that.
If you want to reach out, you can go to Coastal Performance Chiro, CHIRO.com, Coastal Performance Chiro, and you can reach out to Dr. Marvin there. If you're in Texas, you can visit him. Are you able to do anything from a distance, like a telemedicine type of approach?
I could do nutrition for anybody within the state of Texas through the practice, because I run all our nutrition stuff, which is why that's why I'm comfortable talking about that topic. I'm not sexy though. I go consistency, right? Because we know in the long run, everything works about the same as long as protein, calories, and fiber are equated for. So find what you could do.
Right. Sorry about that.
You're good.
The system is telling me the show is over.
You're good. Let me just say, an easy way to reach me directly quickly is through my private Instagram. So Dr. Dr.Marvin, MARVIN .saysdc. But you could find my practices with my business partner. Our social media is at Coastal Performance Chiro. We're most active on Instagram and Facebook. Like, if you have questions, reach out to me. I love hearing from people. I love helping out.
Repeat your personal one again, because your microphone kind of.
Oh, yeah. It's Dr. So Dr.Marvin, my last name, MARVIN .says, SAYSDC. If you can't find it, just go to the private practice one, which is our website, Coastal Performance Chiro, and you'll see collaboration videos. You can find me that way. So if you want to directly reach out to me, great. If you want to reach out to the practice, great. However I can help, that's what I'm here to do.
There you go. All right. Well, listen, thanks for being here today. This is great. I'm glad we had to, you're level-headed. You kept me grounded, so I didn't go off onto a rant about this, but this is good. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you Friday. We have a show this Friday, so I'm going to be doing some shows as we move forward through the next couple months. I'm not abandoning you completely yet. And that's it. Okay, take care. See you soon.